for yielding.
I'll thank the gentleman, and obviously a lot of different bills the gentleman mentioned. Each one of them, by the way, when you rack them up, adds up to trillions of dollars in new spending. And if trillions in Washington spending were going to solve the problem, then we would have no inflation. Obviously, it's going the opposite direction, and it is going the opposite direction because of the trillions of dollars in new spending. And if you go down the line, and obviously as the gentleman went through all of those things, I'd like to respond to a number of them because it just doesn't mesh with the realities of where our economy is today. And if you look at the numbers, you know, we could talk about other countries. And other countries have passed bad policies that have wrecked their economies. You can see Europe right now finally having a renewed debate on energy policy because they passed some really foolish energy policies that are destroying their energy economies, making them more dependent on Russia, for example, to get their oil, to get their natural gas, and they're finally waking up. A lot of them shut their nuclear plants down, which is safe, sound, renewable energy, and they wrecked their economies. And so they're starting to reverse that. And I'm glad they're finally waking up and reversing course. It seems like right here in Washington, the failed policies that President Biden has put in place, they want to double down on. And so when you look at the results of it, that's why we get where we are, double-digit increases in food costs that families are facing. Electricity costs over 15% higher just over last year, and it's about to get worse because the bill that the president was celebrating at the White House had another increase in taxes on natural gas, which will raise those costs even higher. And I'll yield to the gentleman in a moment.
Well, I can't see the chart. Could he tell me what it says so I know what he's talking about?
So electricity rates 15%, 15.8% higher than last year.
Here?
Food at home, in America. Here. This is all in America. Families that we represent are facing the burden of all of these policies that started in Washington that are ultimately ending up taking money out of their pockets. And so when you go to the grocery store, if you can afford to get there, if you can afford to or find the food on the shelves, it's 13.5% higher. And we've seen the list, whether it's eggs, dairy products, bacon, some of them 30% higher individually, but it adds up to about 13.5% more that you're paying at the grocery store. Mortgage rates, if somebody's trying to become a first-time home buyer, which is part of the American dream, today it's 110% higher to get a mortgage than it was a year ago. And most economists, including many Democrat economists, point directly to the trillions in spending in Washington as the reason for that. And families have figured this out and said, stop the madness. And yet, again, at the White House, in the most tone-deaf thing I've seen in a while, the president is having a party celebrating a $730 billion increase in taxes and spending at the exact same time that the market is tanking because of the inflation created by all this spending. And to finish it up, transportation costs 11.3% higher. That's what's happening in America. And again, Europe did a lot of these same bad policies, and they figured it out, and they're starting to reverse course. They just got rid of their prime minister in England because of what they did to wreck their energy economy. And so we brought bills, and as I shared with the gentleman over months, we've brought a number of bills forward that would solve these problems, and not one of them has been scheduled for a vote on the House floor. And so we want to address this problem. We don't just sit back and go, well, it's happening in other countries, so let it stay racking up here in America. It doesn't need to. These are all unforced errors that are the result of failed policies. And instead of stopping the failed policies, working with Republicans to turn it around and lower these costs, it seems like there's a desire to just double down and talk about trillions more to spend. If spending was solving the problems, then we would have none of these problems. The problems have gotten worse with each multi-trillion or multi-hundred billion dollar package of legislation that's come out of this body. And at some point, I would hope the other side would look and recognize, okay, forget about Europe and Asia. They need to look in the mirror and say, why did they create some of their problems? We can do something about these problems. And we brought those ideas forward. And every single time we've been told no, which must mean that this is okay, because this is not okay to us. And there's a way to reverse it. And if just spending more money and having parties at the White House to celebrate that spending while Rome is burning is where we're going to be, I think there's going to be a day of reckoning on that. I don't think the country is comfortable with where we are. and when the idea is just to keep spending more money and act like if maybe it's another $5 trillion, what's the number that's going to finally get us out of this mess? If it was trillions, we'd be there already. Maybe, just maybe, we need to look at going the other way. Stop paying people not to work, for example, when everybody is looking for workers. Unfortunately, the IRS is now looking for 87,000 more people, and as CBO just confirmed, a lot of that is going to be going after hard-working families, families making under $400,000 a year, even though we were promised on this floor that wouldn't happen. We brought an amendment, by the way, to ensure that President Biden's promise would be upheld. We brought an amendment that would say and ensure no American paying under $400,000 would see their taxes go up with these 87,000 new IRS agents. The majority rejected that amendment, and literally the day of the vote, the Congressional Budget Office came out and confirmed it's over $20 billion in new taxes that bill is going to cost families making less than $400,000. And those families are already struggling. They'd love to save up and buy a new house. They can't even afford to get to the grocery store to pay 13.5% more. And if they try to go get a mortgage today, they're going to be paying more than double for that mortgage than they were a year ago. At some point, we got to stop these failed policies that are causing these problems. Go look at what some of these other countries are doing to finally reverse course, because they are, and they need to, but so do we. And I would hope that we would bring some of those bills to the House floor, because we could start reversing these horrible trends right now. And I would yield.
I thank the gentleman.